helping bankers improve their sales conversations, marketing approaches, and sales leadership skills. This is Jack Rants Live. Hello, everyone. It's a very special Thanksgiving edition of Jack Rants Live. I'm Jack Hubbard, Chief Experience Officer of St. Meyer and Hubbard, and welcome to this Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We hope you all have a wonderful holiday with family and friends, and that we start to getting back to some semblance of normalcy here. I always like to start these kinds of programs around Thanksgiving with a big shout out to a mentor of mine. When I was a young banker, it was 1975, I think, I went to Illinois Banker School in Carbondale, Illinois. And I met a guy that I became a lifelong friend of. His name is Kent Stickler. And for those of you that have been in the industry for a long period of time, you know Kent is just a wonderful guy. He has a company called Stickler Learning. And Kent taught me a phrase that I often use around this time of the year, and that's attitude of gratitude, which we certainly have for our families first. And from our perspective, our clients and our associates and all of our friends, like we're going to meet today, who I recently met, and we're going to talk marketing. So we're thrilled you're here, and we very much appreciate the opportunity to bring some of these programs to you, to give you some practical advice here on Jack Rants Live. So here's how the program works. Every week, or nearly every week, unless there's a holiday involved or something else, we bring you some guests that we think, especially community bankers, would find to be of great value and to provide some practical help. The very first week of the month, we have a best-selling author, and we've got several coming up that are truly outstanding as we get into the later parts of the year and into 2022. The second week of the year, we have a banker, or we have something to do with banking. And I've already got some really good bankers lined up for 2022 in marketing and training and other kinds of areas. Week 3 of the program, we have a consultant on, like we do today, that talks about a lot of different kinds of things, mostly marketing. And then the fourth week of the month, we have a digital person, someone who talks about digital concepts, etc. So that's how the program works. Here's some guests coming up. We have Brent Adamson from Gartner, Challenger Sale, Challenger Customer, probably 2 books you're familiar with. Brent's going to talk a little bit about what's going on in sales into 2022, some of the things he's seeing. Gartner does a tremendous job with research, and we're going to find out what's going on there. Then the following week, 2 of my very, very good friends in the industry, Tom Hirschberger, who is the president of Cross Financial out in Nebraska, and Tom is a provider of services with me for the Graduate School of Banking in Madison, Wisconsin, the sales and marketing school that we do every year, kind of a co-director. And then my good friend in the industry, Lance Kessler, who I've known for, more than 3 decades, who's my boss at Graduate School of Banking. He's also the boss at the ABA School of Bank Marketing and Management, which is a terrific school. And then on the 13th of December, which is a Tuesday, a very unique day, we have Jim Clifton, who is the chairman of Gallup, and that's a big deal. And so we're going to talk about what's going on and all these kinds of things that we've been talking about over the last couple of years, and see where all this is headed from a research perspective. Today, we're not going to talk much about research, but we are going to talk a lot about marketing with my guest, Josh Mabus. Josh is the founder and CEO of the Mabus Industry. He's got a business and journalism degree from the University of Mississippi. I believe he's a native of Mississippi. Back in 2008, he launched his firm, the Mabus Company, and they focus a lot on bank marketing for community banks. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have Josh come on today. I was telling him before the program that, I saw something on LinkedIn that he did, and it was a really interesting video and some concepts around digital marketing and bank marketing. So I reached out to him. We've become fast friends, and we're thrilled to have him today to talk about what his agency does around bank marketing and digital strategies and some other things. And the other thing I really like about Josh is we're very, very much in sync around the fact that he's got a small agency, we've got a small training company. He serves a very intimate group of clients, and so do we. So we have a lot of symmetry. But the other thing that I really want to pick at with Josh is if you go to his LinkedIn profile, he talks about the fact that he's a trivia champion. Now, I like trivia and all, but I want to talk to Josh about that as we get started. The other thing that's interesting, Josh, about your LinkedIn profile is you don't have a photo like a lot of people do. You've got a really neat drawing. I'm curious, Josh, did you draw that?
Oh, no, I did not. Luckily, this is the benefit of having employees. There's the phrase "do it like a boss." Well, that just means delegate to somebody else. Have a wonderful had a wonderful employee named Caleb Hunt, who is now he left us here in Mississippi to go work in Manhattan. Probably one of the most talented illustrators I've ever worked with, and we were lucky to have him for a season, a couple of years. I can't remember exactly, but he took a job at a firm in New York. And one of the things we say, I am a native of Mississippi, and one of the things that we say are, we have a lot of exports here. But one of our greatest exports is talented people. So one of the things that I view my job to do here in this strange little state is to keep either train them for somebody else for another state and for them to find other experiences, or to try to keep them here and enhance what we do in our state.
Well, and we're so thrilled to have you. And I remember when we first met, one of the things my wife always likes to do is to say, "Well, who's your guest this week?" And I say, "Well, it's Josh." And she says, "Well, where's Josh from?" And I say, "Mississippi." And one of her filters is, "Well, is there anybody in HGTV that's in Mississippi?" And indeed, there is a very, very nice, seemingly nice couple that works out of Mississippi. I don't know if you know them, but I'm sure you know who they are.
I don't know them personally. They're down in they're probably 4 or 5 hours drive south of us. But strangely and recently, a guy that I'm acquainted with. If you watch the show, obviously the I can't even think of their names now. They use a guy. They used a guy in my hometown of Tupelo to source a lot of their wood and to make their materials. And I think they've hit it off so much so that he just recently moved his whole family down to them to be part of that to be part of that show. A guy named Stuart Witt, who's a fantastic woodworker, which is one of the hobbies. You mentioned trivia. I don't have room for all of my weird hobbies, but trivia is one of them. And Champ, it may be one of those things that really points to the a shortcoming of LinkedIn, that I can put anything on there. The veracity of my statements may or may not come true. I don't know if I'm a champion, but if I'm ever in town with you, or anybody that's listening, and there's bar trivia, I certainly would like to accompany anyone to some good old fashioned bar trivia.
Well, you are a really eclectic guy, and it came out very, very openly as you and I just kind of talked in a very natural way when we first met. Give everybody a sense of your company and who you work with, some of the things that you do, Josh.
Absolutely. So founded Mabus Agency in 2008. I heard you mentioning your mentor, a mentor of yours at the top. I found myself with a mentor here in Tupelo, who through connections, you're in the Chicago area, J. Walter Thompson, one of the great Chicago agencies, a guy there connected with a business in Tupelo. And so there's a fellow at the time. When I met him, I was in my early 20s, and he was in his late 60s, and we became fast friends, as you and I have. And he took me under his wing, and as a 20-year-old guy, I don't think I need to be under anybody's wing, and all of that. But it's been a wonderful mentor. Anything that I share about about my journey was certainly spurred by him. And in 2008, or late December 2007, we just kept kind of saying we were working two different places, two different companies. We kept saying Tupelo, Mississippi needs an ad agency. And real quick, Tupelo was a hub in the furniture industry, and it's a sort of a triangle between Memphis, Tennessee, Birmingham, Alabama, and Jackson, Mississippi. Those are the largest cities around, and they had ad agencies. There's a tremendous amount of assets here. That needed serving, but they were poorly served by these outside agencies. And so one of us would say Tupelo needs an ad agency, and the other one would say that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. And then it would rotate. The other one would have the suggestion. And finally, one day, again in late 2007, we both said at the same time and actually agreed instead of disagreed. So we started in January of 2008. We all know what happened at the rest of 2008, which was actually a boon for us. I don't really have survivor's remorse for this, but it certainly, as other agencies were getting fired, expensive agencies were getting fired, companies were willing to take a chance on this startup agency. And I was 28. Dwayne Birch, who was my mentor, he's since passed away, was 72. So we were a bit of an odd couple. He was from Moline, Illinois, UI guy. Worked in Connecticut and Manhattan, and all of the upper crust areas down here with a country boy, who's a designer more so than anything at that point, writer from my background in journalism and things like that. But he was a strategy guy. And again, we were an odd couple. We started this knowing, and I can now appreciate, getting a bit older, how he knew what would happen, which was he didn't plan to work very much longer. And he was the momentum to really start this. So about a year and a half in, I bought him out. During that time, we were a general services firm serving the Southeast. But as I said, that sort of Tupelo is a strange area in the assets it held. And so there are two banks here, Bancorp South, that's becoming Cadence, and Renaissance Bank, which is about 18 billion in assets now. Really strange. We're a town of 38,000 people that triples in size during the day due to the influx of rural workers coming in. We have the nation's largest rural hospital. And so we started working with Renaissance Bank shortly after Dwayne left the company. And I've been working with banks ever since. I'd worked with Renaissance a little bit before that through my friend John Oxford. So I've worked in banking for nearly 20 years now, not necessarily the longest career in the world, but obviously a deep and intimate career. And to take out the boring parts, in 2017, we decided to work with banks only. After we didn't really know that we were doing anything special. We just kind of looked at the industry, and I fought the homogeny of being a bank specialist for a long time, and like the variety of the different types of clients we worked with. But we found that we were doing something different. And one of the things I'm drawn to is, if I can do something well, I do want to multiply that. I want to sort of get all of wring out all of the whatever I can get out of it. And for my talent, for whatever that means, not wring it out of the business and all of that. But so we switched in 2017 to work with banks only. And that's been a wonderful journey, being able to bring that difference that we're able to bring to bear for Renaissance. And as you've pointed out, work with a very small group of clients, to intimately work with them to become an agency of record. When we start with a client, we know the least amount about that client we will ever know on day one. And what is precious is, over that time, we build this library of information, the storehouse of knowledge. And it's doing programmatic or project work is tough, because I feel like we're squandering an opportunity. We do it gladly, by the way. Anybody out there wanting to hire us for a brand or a website, and you don't need an agency of record, we do it. And those are wonderful little, very finite slices of time. But certainly being able to dig in and understand a bank strategy, understanding the evolution of it. With Renaissance in particular, they were $2.6 billion in assets when we started working with them. Through the acquisitions of 2008 on, I think I've participated in 18 M&As myself. So understanding that cultural transformation, and then the growing to an $18 billion bank. And we work with $100 billion banks on the other side. Just wherever we have a philosophical fit. The simplest way I can say is where they're buying what we're selling, and that makes it sound very transactional. But when we really understand what we're selling, we can really vet a client to make certain that we understand that there is a fit, and that's what we're you know, adamantly tied to making certain. We want to work with people we like working with, but absolutely where we can provide value doing what we do instead of, what I see a lot of agencies doing, which is chasing the next thing and possibly many times getting themselves into bad positions.
Well, you mentioned liking what you do, and one of the things that I want to bring up to the folks that are on is ask Josh a question. This is a great opportunity for those of you that are bank marketing professionals to hop on and ask Josh a question. We're happy to do that. But you mentioned John Oxford, and you've got I've listened to your podcast. It's amazing. You obviously, you and John have a lot of fun together. It's called Marketing Money. Talk about your podcast a little bit.
So, like many things in my life, I can't claim much of the origin of it. So John, who's the director of marketing at Renaissance Bank, we've been friends and colleagues for a long time. Our friendship developed through working together at the bank. Came to me and said we should start a podcast, and I thought it was the dumbest idea I'd ever heard. At that point in time, or my understanding of podcasts were very niche, really nerd-centric podcasts. Like there's a show and it has a podcast, or there's the Mustang owner's podcast. It was always very micro, which it still is. But this was right after Serial had launched. That I think really brought podcasting back to really, or brought it to a mainstream sort of thing. And we, not that we rode the success of Serial, because our audience is small. We both primarily talk to banking, not necessarily the banking industry. And so it's really more banks than credit unions, but obviously there's applicable knowledge for credit unions. So by the nature of what we talk about, right now we have about 5,000 audience possible.
Wow.
And not all the 5,000 banks have a marketing person, right? Sometimes it's the HR person, and the compliance person is also the marketing person. But the ingredient of that for John and me is fun. And I think that's a lot of the complaint that we get is, man, I really love when you talk about the meat of it, but you guys just screw around a lot. And what I say to people that say that is, maybe it's the wrong podcast, or you have to, we wouldn't do it if it weren't fun. And it's not a labor of love, because it's no labor, but it's two friends who deeply love the industry, who deeply want other banks and bankers to be successful. Really, this industry of banking is the financial underpinning of America, the ACH network, how money's transacted, where capital is accessed. I really do love the industry of banking. So it's two of us that go in there, with that love, but a fair amount of disdain for the dumb stuff that goes on in banking. How we can't get out of our own way at times, and things like that. And so we, much like this is Jack Rants, is we rant and rave a bit and tell dumb jokes and pop culture references. But if it weren't fun, we absolutely would not be doing it.
Well, but there's practicality in the fun too, and I've listened to these, and you do get a couple of nuggets, which leads me to the next thing. I mean, we're not involved really in marketing, and I mentioned my buddies Hirschberger and Lance Kessler. Those folks are deeply into what goes on in marketing. So are you. So I'm a community banker. I talked to a bank the other day in the Northeast, and the poor woman almost was apologizing. She said, "Well, I'm the entire marketing department." And I think that's very true of a lot of community banks. Either one person, maybe two, maybe three, two and a half. What do you tell people, Josh, given the past 20 months, as to where this industry is headed in 2022? What do I need to be doing as a marketing professional to get ready for this thing?
Yeah, that's tough. I famously have said for years that, banking is an industry that doesn't change. And I certainly changed that opinion at the pandemic, right? That we had a tremendous and radical shift. So my prognostication, my levels of certainty in that are much smaller. One thing I would point out about the people who are apologetic about being a team of one, and I'll continue to use John as an example because I know he wouldn't mind. He was a team of one until the bank crossed a pretty big threshold. Now there were different divisions, different responsibilities, but it wasn't until they got, I would just say, to a large number of assets before he added to a team. I believe he's got a team of 10 now, and so in that, the first thing is, and obviously this is self-serving somewhat, but finding that ad hoc help. Do you have an agency that can be a partner? Now I want to stop real quick because I'm going to kind of go talk about vendors in a light. There's the vendor that always wants to be called the partner. I want to make an important distinction there in how I believe this really works. A vendor, somebody said, I saw it on LinkedIn the other day, a vendor sells hot dogs. That a partner, on the other side, what we all shoot for has equity in your business. And I don't think either of those apply to me, honestly. And I really did have an introspective thought of this. I'm more of a coworker. I get paid just like the W-2. I'm a 1099 guy, I guess, who comes in and works alongside somebody else. And I'm a bit of a mercenary. I mean, I don't treat it as that, but money doesn't matter and all that. What it does until you don't get a paycheck, right? So when there's the paycheck, it's not a partnership because we don't have equal stake. And I'm not, and there are certainly vendors out there. There are plenty of vendors who, as I said, vendors sell hot dogs. Don't be surprised when the hot dog vendor tries to sell you a hot dog. They're the ones out there that they sell the best thing that you need for your bank, but maybe you don't need. But in that, I do believe if you can look at ad hoc people as a coworker, so certainly finding that for flexibility, and I lean into that, not just because I'm a person who works that way, but the lack of commitment to that, right? I don't know what everybody needs as far as writers. If you can find a great writer, a great financial writer, hire them. That's one thing I can say. They're incredibly rare. And everything we do has writing in it. Whether you're doing a podcast, something audio or visual, there will be a script. There will be writing. You can always find a designer, and I won't say that they're a dime a dozen, but writers absolutely. But what really needs to happen, I think, is bolstering of those core values of marketing and advertising. Digital is one of your 4 things that you're going after, to speak to, and digital gets a lot of I don't know, conversation around it. But digital advertising is now traditional advertising. I mean, it has been going long enough that it's as old as TV when we were talking that TV was old, or when digital was new, right? That it has matured. Now it is multifaceted. I don't think you need to go out and hire someone necessarily. But what I would look at anytime I'm looking to hire someone is it cheaper to buy it than rent it? And rent it until you need to buy it. And in this world, you have a ton of resources, advertising and marketing resources. Tom's one of those. Lance is a fantastic resource and consultant to a ton of banks. One thing I want to point out about Lance that I'm mad about all these pictures and us is Lance is the only one with dark hair. We all have white hair, and Lance stopped aging at some point.
He did.
He is, and not just in appearance. He is absolutely incredibly energetic and a catalyst in banking, and I love watching him work. But I'm sitting here looking at the image you had, and my beard was much darker. It's going all the way white. So, but no, I mean, I know that's a circuitous way to answer that, but find a consultant, find somebody, especially those teams of one who maybe haven't developed their specialty in marketing, not individually, but for their bank. Do we need to develop digital expertise or traditional expertise? And there are areas like take, rural middle America where farmers are in the combines and their equipment all day. I'm not a big radio fan. But these people are listening to the radio. They're listening to the farm report all day and all night, or well, maybe not all night, but they're what are the futures? What are these beans going to do that I'm out here cultivating? And so radio is really important there. But I mean, it really is start somewhere, especially if you're a team of one. But I think starting with a consultant before you begin to hire, unless you just find that rare talent, and generally that sings, right? I'm not going to find another person like this if I don't hire them today, and absolutely be open to those. But building a team of one out is difficult until you really find what your specialty and what your approach will be.
But I like Greg Martin's question here, Josh, and I think it's probably something you can speak to. Greg asks a great question. Why not look at your current employees to help fill that partner role? And I love the question, and I'll pose it that way and a little differently. We see a lot of community banks who have part-time marketing people who are also in the bank doing other jobs, but they have tremendous talent. And I'm curious how you answer Greg's question and what you're seeing about banks using internal talent as a partner.
Well, I think that's obviously, well, maybe not obviously, or it wouldn't be a question. I think that is a great place to start. The problem that banks have is the ability to affect change, small or large, even within and without their organization. And that's not a knock, it's just an observation. I think it's an axiomatic truth that with all the regulatory scrutiny we have, any sort of change has to be signed off. But we're not talking about that level. What I'm talking about is the loan assistant who may be a good graphic designer, a great writer, or a great videographer. I see it to be somewhat problematic because banks will not ever let them move from the role they were good at, that they were hired for. And so they wind up serving two masters. And I see some friction in that. I certainly, I used to say I'm not a micromanager, but I really love managing every aspect of a brand. And somebody pointed out, if you say I'm not and you say but, then everything before the but is moot. So I am a micromanager. We have a video production team in-house, which is unheard of in agencies. Every agency hires a video production team. But I've had so many times where a video production team didn't show up on time. My dad's a contractor. And he said, one of the jokes is, you know what it means when the bricklayer says you'll be there in the morning? And everybody says, what? Not a damn thing. The bricklayer doesn't show up. They're a subcontractor. So absolutely looking internally. I have a strong prejudice to looking internally, but banks have to start, especially small banks, where you have maybe, 20 staff total. Are you going to let someone serve both roles well? Do you have a transition plan to get somebody into a role that they may find more valuable? Or are you going to try to get two full-time employees? I'll say this around the same thing as I see all of these ads out there. And if you're guilty of this, please stop, people, where you say, I want a writer, a videographer, somebody who can use InDesign and Photoshop, who knows digital marketing, and the salary is $24,000. You want a whole agency in one person. And we're in the financial industry, and we're such, efficiency is our word over and over and over. We expect so much. I just want to set it up where we expect someone, but we have to do two roles at once, to do two 40-hour roles at once. And if it's an area where you have ignorance, which I think we can say that someone who came up just straight through banking probably doesn't know digital marketing, then it's very difficult for you to manage that person and understand those expectations. But certainly developing talent in-house is the first place to start.
Well, let's talk about talent. So when I came up through the bank marketing ranks, and I told this story recently on a podcast that I appeared on from a great guy, James Robert Lay, and I said, when I started in banking, in marketing, the two things were make sure that there's an ad in the paper every week that the president's wife liked because she owned 54% of the bank, and make sure there's enough dog biscuits in the drive-in. And here's our challenge. We've got banks, 500 million, 750. As you get to $1 billion, you may get a couple of more folks in your marketing department. But we've got somebody who perhaps has been around for a number of years, kind of a veteran, grew up in the industry, like traditional marketing, radio, television, etc. And now we've got a couple of things going on. We've got digital marketing, we've got social media, we've got all those kinds of things. What are you seeing with your clients that have small marketing departments with veteran marketing professionals trying to do something that's a very, very new skill?
I mean, I see a lot of what you saw, apology and insecurity, honestly. And I don't think that the first one, the apology is probably not warranted, but the insecurity is, because this is a new area. Um, uh, the thing that we have to understand though, in digital marketing, and I want to go back and kind of bridge this back to the previous question. I think one of the problems we have in banking, maybe this um, um, I don't know, predilection to hire internally anyway. And I think that's where some of this stuff comes from. If someone's been a teller, I really don't know how to promote them. They have a marketing degree, and maybe forcing some people into a role that, of course, they're going to take, but they aren't fully comfortable because the bank may not also provide that underpinning of training. And this is a very difficult industry, bank marketing. We have compliance scrutiny that if I go market, almost anything else I don't have. We have a family-owned bank in these smaller banks where the where like you said, the matriarch owns 54%, and maybe the husband, the in-law of the founder, right, the son-in-law of the founder owns another 25%, and it's family, and I could tank this family business. Not just a bank, but it's a family business, and there's a ton of this. So I absolutely understand that, and that homegrown sort of nature I get. But again, I just go to look for outside help. I mean, there's never been a situation where I've not been able to find, if I vetted properly, some outside help to that. And there are just so many tremendous resources to level up your knowledge immediately. I mean, the day before you call them, you may be at zero knowledge, and the day after you're at a 10 of 10. Now that takes the vetting and all of that. But one thing I will say about this sort of a misnomer about digital marketing and social media, the principles that I apply to both and have ridiculous success. We regularly and routinely outperform national averages in digital display by many orders of magnitude. And it's because we are not listening to the new stuff. We are applying my mentors' wisdom to it. Ogilvy, Leo Burnett, core old antique advertising thinking. Just because there's a new medium does not mean that psychology changed. I commented on a post you put. I can't remember now who. It was Kyle Hirschberger, Tom's son, that said he thought attention spans were getting shorter, and I think we're kind of a semantic kind of debate there, discourse. But I don't think attention spans are getting shorter. I think we have less tolerance for bad messaging, and bad messaging has come out of actually a relatively recent field, the 90s, the desktop publishing craze, where Apple made computers that then we could use, and we didn't have to have paste up and camera ready artwork to all of us old school guys. And there's a phrase that emerged from that. Oh, don't worry about that copy. Nobody's going to read all that copy. And that was because designers or tech nerds, computer users, who couldn't write copy were designing the ads. So they diminished the importance of messaging. And now we still believe that. And we believe things like digital advertising is inhuman, is not personal. Anytime somebody brings this up, I invite them, unlock your phone and hand it to me, and let me start going through your photos and your text messages. If you don't believe digital marketing is personal, this device is the last thing I see before I go to bed and the first thing I check in the morning. I'm absolutely addicted to it, enamored with it, in love with it. It's deeply personal. My children's photos are on there, my calendar, my work life, my messages to my closest friends, my wife, and our secrets and private conversations are on there. When someone lets you into that digital into that digital space. It's an incredibly personal space. So don't, those misnomers are some general advice I can give, but good old fashioned, excellent copywriting, value based copy that gets somebody to transition to a landing page. Last thing I'll say, and we'll move on because I'll get into the technical nerdery soapbox of this. Understand, anybody out there doing digital marketing, that a digital display ad or a search ad is inexorably tied to the landing page. They're two parts of a whole. It is not a landing page and a digital ad. They are both. It's like the headline and the body copy of a print ad are part of the same whole. And so understanding the relationship between those, it breaks down into more palatable and understandable bites when you take off the kind of what the snake oil salesman out there. I mean, there's a wonderful reason, well, not a wonderful, a terrible, insidious reason to make digital seem difficult for the consultant to get more work. And it's not, the tactics and the execution is quite difficult. The learning curve of using, I think Google AdWords is one of the more straightforward systems that Google offers, that you can go buy AdWords in about an hour after opening it. They have great walkthroughs. They're approachable, but there is a wealth of knowledge, but that's tactical. That's where you hire someone to go do the work. You can't do it all. So banks set the strategy, set the messaging, and then hire those tactical practitioners to execute.
And a tactical practitioner is on with us now. Ellie Humphreys works with Eric Cook. And I don't know if you know Eric. I mean, who doesn't know Eric Cook, right? He's absolutely amazing, an instructor for us at Sales and Marketing School. He runs the digital school for graduate school banking, and his company is phenomenal. WSI, like yours is. I'm curious. I wish Ellie could join us on set, because this could be an interesting debate. Her question: do you believe video short form content is more valuable to a viewer than a 2,000 word blog post? Go.
There's not a debate. There's no debate in this, because this is we have to consider individuals. And there are certainly individuals that video short form content is going to be more valuable than a 2,000 word blog post. And so there is no overarching answer to which one is more valuable. It depends on the product. It depends on the content itself. Some content is much more linked to written word. We're doing this for a client right now that does financial counseling, and they have these wonderful heartfelt stories. And we made a judgment call as we were looking at the people we would interview for video versus blogs. So there are two parts of a campaign. And I said, let's move the more emotional ones to the blog. And I've worked in nonprofit marketing. I have a wonderful background of advocacy and orphan care, and finding and aiding abandoned children. So we're talking about banking. So this is nothing universal and axiomatic, but I would put heart-wrenching stories on video for an orphanage because it translated better. You could see the emotion. But I believe, as we talk about this bank and financial consulting, I don't think that overt emotionalism is going to be great on video. So we elected to put that on the blog and put it in the written word so you could feel it and process it alone. And we're going to put the more positive, I guess, happier, more lighthearted stories on video. So there's certainly a place for both. And if you're ever in a position where you have to choose between, I would really urge someone to ask a deeper question of which is better for the circumstance. I want to add one more quick part to this. And this is a blog. I'm not going to go deep into it, but look at our blog, look at the mabusagency.com/blog for, I don't remember what the blog's called. I can't, but it's inverse triangles. I'll tell you real quick. Then we have the typical funnel of an audience. That up here at the top is the big part of the audience that matriculates down into the small part at the bottom. That we know that all of the people that come through our website or come through our content will not matriculate down to a client. On the other side, there's a triangle that looks like this, the inverse to it. And line this up. So what it states is the largest part of the audience is interested in the least amount of content. the most topical? Is this the right brand for me? Did I click on the landing page versus digital ad? Did I get to the right entity I thought I was going to? Is this a place I want to bank, with which I want to bank? But as you get down into that audience, as it gets smaller, the smallest people, those active about to buy customers, are interested in the deepest and broadest information. They're interested. I'm about to buy. I want to know the fine print. Does the car come with floor mats? Does it, you know,
Yeah.
they are interested in the nitpicky. So the 2,000 word blog post is very valuable to a person that may have been activated at the top of the funnel by a very short video that says, "Oh, I like this brand." I relate this to dating. And thankfully, I haven't had to date in a really, really long time, because I have a very wonderful wife. But there are, innate parts of our brain that we are attracted physically to people, and so that's the top, right? That you have a broad, okay, well, you're a brunette of this certain persuasion, but that doesn't mean when you walk past a beautiful brunette, in my case, at a in the frozen pea aisle at the grocery store, I don't tell her that I've been divorced and I have 3 kids right off the bat. There's deeper content that should be saved until there is some rapport built. So absolutely, there's a place for both in the life cycle, the customer journey, if you will, of a client.
Well, I want to pick at content and websites in a second, but I think your commentary and Ellie's question goes right to your point about making sure that whatever you call it, whether it's a transactor, you're on retainer, you're a partner, that if you're going to work with an outside resource, that they understand your marketplace and your bank's objectives. Because if they don't, and they don't understand your goals, and they don't understand your audience, you may do all short form video content and miss the mark with every senior citizen where you have 62% of the market share in.
Yeah.
So you
And
got
you
to
don't go
really,
deep
really
enough.
be careful about that.
Yeah.
I want to transition over into something that is near and dear to me, from a I'll call it a smarketing perspective. I'm really big on the idea that sales and marketing have to work closer together. I'm also very big on the idea that marketing professionals in community banks need to know a lot more about commercial banking, how the bank makes money, what commercial banking is all about, long cycle buying versus short cycle buying. What are some of the things that you're seeing in your clients, and what are you telling them around this whole idea of sales and marketing integration?
Well, again, I hate to not be this compelling, but the answer I think is incredibly simple, and it's communication. Um, is with our clients, we ask for, if they have not built these inroads relationally, to have at least a quarterly meeting with those stakeholders, that we bring commercial banking in and we listen to them. What are you facing? I mean, it's so easy to do advertising to a group, not for a group, not with a group, that we get they want a brochure, and commercial banking strange. There's a dichotomy, that a polarity, if you will, of the group, the old hats who I don't need marketing. It's all relationship. I'm going to go do it on my own. I don't need you. And then I wouldn't say new group, but there's a group of salespeople in the world who you cannot arm with enough material to do their job. If I just had the brochure that did this, or if I just had this, my business card was better, I could meet my quota. And we know that. And I know that you face and train through that. And it's beneficial to both, but there's a scale, right? And the thing is having those active communications, with finding those barriers and letting them, and it's a two-way conversation. It's not just listening. There's you would think with a verbose guy like me, it won't surprise you that I believe that we've disparaged talking. The not listening. My dad used to tell me, son, you've got two ears and one mouth for a reason. You need to do twice as much listening as talking, which is probably a good ratio, but that doesn't mean zero talking. So letting commercial banking know what we're doing, letting them know about our efforts, and letting them know that name, ID, and awareness. So when you show up and I'm from, XYZ bank, that commercial lender or potential commercial lending client doesn't say, what, who? That's a bad first impression. And so warming those sales leads, I don't have any other prescription other than regular meetings and listening and communicating your side and collaborating around it. Retail, gets, kind of the short end of the stick. 50 to 70% of the profitability of a bank is generally in commercial lending, unless they're like a mortgage house and, things like that. But so commercial lending is kind of they wag they're not the tail, they're the I don't know what all but they're wagging the industry or the organization. But understanding that if we build core DDA relationships too, that those people are business owners and we can go upstream. So understanding the retail side and understanding what woes they're having. I'll give you a quick, if you don't know where to start on that conversation, I have a simple formula. One, just being able to articulate what you're doing that would affect them, affect that constituency, but asking them these simple questions. What have you seen us doing that we never need to do again? That just you believe is totally ineffective. What are we not doing that we need to start? And what are we doing that we need to double down on? What have you seen that's really effective? And unless you're just completely introverted and backwards, I think there will be a conversation that can blossom from those three things that will absolutely help you listen after you add the fourth, which is articulating your position and what marketing's doing for that constituency.
This is really good. Two questions. One of the things at the sales and marketing school that we talk a lot about is a topic that I think is really important to marketing professionals, and that is, given that we're at Thanksgiving time, how do I get to sit at the big kids table? How do I get to go to the adult table? How do I get to the C-suite? Because sometimes marketing is viewed kind of as a weak stepchild.
Mhm.
I guess a two-part question. How does marketing get there? And in your opinion and what you've seen, who should marketing report to at the bank?
Ooh, that's a tough question. You're probably gonna get me in trouble with some existing clients. Who, um, I believe absolutely that at a point, banks have to shift like every other organization in America, and a CMO, director of marketing, should be part of executive management. Um, we have to understand as an industry what marketing's role is in bringing customers in. It's not all about relationship. It's less about relationship that's ever been in the pure shoe leather handshake sense, that we have to develop those relationships digitally across the country. And marketing is going to be the conduit through which that happens. So bringing them to the table so that they can hear more executive goals and be part of that and understand how to facilitate those goals through the vehicle of marketing. And that's a sea change, but it's happened a lot through that internal and we're through that internal hiring. And I'm not prejudicial against it. I'm just saying the dangers it's created. When you remember that Jim or Sally was a loan assistant 10 years ago, which to the person they're reporting to seems like yesterday, it's a prejudice that develops in your mind that you can't separate. Well, Sally's
Sure.
just a loan assistant. What does she know? And that's a very stripped back example, but that happens in banking. That absolutely happens in banking every day. And allowing that person to actually be an expert. And I think it's from the top down. I hope that there are executives listening to this that just stop and consider maybe that you do have some experts on staff. I think it's really difficult to ask for from the bottom up. We've seen this in every marginalized group in the world that it's through fights and upheaval that the marginalized get their voice told. And I'm not relating bank marketers to I'm just saying, as in a general societal psychological sense, it's difficult for the bottom to ask, please sir, may I have some more? It's what we sort of are cast into, right? But it's difficult. I don't have an answer. We've been able to help marketing teams bring back incredible results that were still sort of looked at with a bit of chagrin. Like, yeah, I see what you did on the website, but did that really lead to any sales?
Mhm.
So building
Yeah.
attribution models of product adoption, and it's tough to do in banking. But I think as I go back to, I'm naive and I believe that there's nothing that communication can't fix. Being able to have frank and candid conversations with, I feel this way. I'm busting my butt for this bank, and I feel like I don't have a seat at the table. Um, all these aren't going to lead to good outcomes. I'm naive, but not that naive. But I think that there's nothing that communication can't fix if we're willing to communicate, and that takes both sides. The marketer being willing to communicate doesn't fix anything if their report is not. But I do think that operations COO, because I view marketing as a function of operation, is to give an answer to the question instead of to skirt it is probably a good path to go through.
And I think too, there needs to be a level of responsibility. I equate it to when my kids were young, 7 and 5, my parents moved to Florida. And then they would come back once a year, and Adam and Aaron were bigger and their interests were different. And my parents still thought they were 7 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
So there needs to be a level of growth here that's recognized by the senior executives of the bank, to your point. I also think there's a responsibility on the part of the marketing person to make sure that they understand as much as they can about banking and how the bank works. One of the things I really like about our GSB class is we start out with a guy named Mike Weir, who's amazing in the industry, and he talks about the business of banking and getting to understand the business and where this is all headed. Which leads me to probably my second to last question. We could go for hours here, I'm sure. But you see this more than I do, and I like to call it the shiny object syndrome, where we as bankers have bought a lot of different kinds of technology, and technology is great, but some of it was working really well, and some of it we get sold a bill of goods, and the customer doesn't adapt it. The bankers inside don't know how to use it. Make sense of all this technology if you can.
Yeah, I wish I could, but I will give some insight. We have. I was recently at a conference, strangely enough, in Wisconsin, where I asked the question: are you buying what your vendors are selling, or what your customers want? And want versus need is important. Let's use PFMs for an example. I think that that a PFM is noble, incredibly noble, that we can empower our customers to better know their finance and better know their trajectories and to save money and things like that. And that was sold to us expertly by wonderful companies and bad ones too. But that was sold to us. But also they sold us all the data we would get. You would know when a mortgage is going out of house, and you would have this internal data to be able to cross sell and nurture. And then we bought it. We bought what they were selling, and we rolled it out, and we found, much like me, when I go to the doctor when I don't feel well, the doctor says, "Are you eating right and exercising?" I'm like, no, I don't feel well. I'm here for the pill. You're a doctor. I don't feel well. Fix me, not me go fix myself. And so much with our physical health, individuals with their financial health don't want to look at it. And so adoption was lower than was promised because our customers didn't want it. Maybe they needed it. And it goes back to that quote misattributed to Henry Ford. If you ask people what they want, they would say faster horses. So it's not about pulling them necessarily, but there's another factor that we get wound up at conferences, and that's people get up there who have no stake in our business, tell us to disrupt or die. Look at Airbnb, look at Uber. Now we can, right? We can look at both of them, and that journey of disruption has been fraught with difficulty. And I don't believe our job is disruption in banking. One, I go back to how hard it is to implement change in an organization. It's difficult. Think about just small changes. That our job is discernment, not disruption. That we don't need to change anything. We have too much regulatory scrutiny. And I'm not going to say some small bank out there won't actually create the next thing in banking. But our job is discernment, discerning what our customers will adopt, or discerning a path, but discerning how we'll adopt it. And it's tough through banking. I think we run out of gas too. Think about big CRM platforms or scheduling platforms that seem wonderful. I'll be able to take Time Trade or whatever it is, and put direct access to book a banker's time right on our website. And it sounds wonderful, but we go through the implementation, but we don't have the gas left in the tank to create the cultural change.
Right.
That will facilitate the value. We only had half the plan. So discernment, not being just negative Nelly or whatever and say we can't do this, but being discerning enough and being realistic enough to identify the pitfalls, the potential pitfalls, and creating solutions for those is part of it. But being the customer's advocate, listening to them and finding what needs. I think PFMs would have been better adopted if there had been less time on the software companies selling us on them and more facilitating the value of them to the public. Mint outside of banking did a wonderful job because they were standalone. Their value is in the end customer adopting it. So they made it valuable to the customer. And what the salespeople did, as long as they got to sell to the bank, their job was done. That's your job now to sell the customer. So some co-op type, type help would have been good there, but that's sour grapes from me. Really being able in the marketing role be discerning about truly what we can do to add value. Again, that person above you opening the door and you knocking on the door to be able to voice your concerns is very important in that as well.
Well, great conversation. And as I ask you the last question, Josh, and thank you so much for your sharing of your time. Let's put up Josh's information and how we can how people can get a hold of him. This is the kind of honesty and the kind of forthrightness that you'll get from Josh Mabus. I always like
whether you want it or not.
Well, I hear you. And people need it. So I always ask every guest, last question. Authors you read, authors you're reading, people you follow, so that other people can go out and benefit from your knowledge.
So this is difficult, and it really kind of weirds people out when I say this, that I'm going to give you a group of authors, but I have a weird sponge kind of thing. I'm always listening, and I try even to bad things, but again, it's that discernment side. I listen to people I disagree with probably more than they would believe. And sometimes I debate them in my mind, like I don't have to get on be a keyboard warrior to debate with them, but is there truth in this? Is there not? So I get a lot of micro content is what I would say. I am looking at LinkedIn. I am looking at competitors and other industry people to see what they're saying, but not taking anything at face value. I doubt everything. And I'm an editor by nature. And this is one of probably the more annoying parts of my personality, but why? But the foundation, where I believe I get a ton of value. I love Levitt and Dubner, the Freakonomics guys. All of their books. Don't be dissuaded by thinking about it's economics or whatever that you're not interested in as a marketer. It's about research. It's about common sense. It's about human psychology, and incredibly valuable. Ogilvy, read any of David Ogilvy's books. He's an old titan. He's got some antiquated thought, but applying those. Leo Burnett is one of the, again, old titans. But there's a guy that he just retired from Savannah College of Art and Design, a guy named Luke Sullivan, who has read or written a book called "Hey Whipple, Squeeze This." And I don't know how many people remember Mr. Whipple with Charmin. It's really a creepy commercial now when you think about it. But it's he talks about value-based. I think writing is the core of everything. And understand that I'm a visual artist. I was a sculptor. I'm a woodworker. I'm a leather worker. I'm a visual artist. But I had to develop my writing skills. And I'm a pretty damn good copywriter because I forced myself to develop it, because as I said earlier, everything is messaging. And Luke Sullivan, Hey Whipple, Squeeze This is a book that if you're not at least 20% to 50% better as a writer after you read it, ask somebody else for your money back. I don't know, but I believe in it that much. It's something you absolutely should read.
Wow. Well, Josh, the hour went by like nobody's business. I hope you'll come back again. I'd love to have you, Hirschberger, Lance, and Eric Cook on the same show. I think that would be an absolute blast. So let's do this again.
Absolutely. It'd be an honor to be part of that group. I I don't know what it's a great group. So it just being mentioned with those guys is flattering. So I've loved every minute of this, and if something anybody disagrees with, I'm a good civil debater. So send me an email at the email josh@mabusagency.com. And a lot of these things I talked about are available on our blog as well, mabusagency.com. And you can dig in a little bit deeper on my thoughts. And again, play Stump the Chump. I'll be the chump.
That's great. Well, Josh, again, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks to you and everybody for their time. Have a great Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. And take care of yourselves.
We'll see you again. Josh Mabus, everybody, and we definitely will have Josh back. What an amazing hour, and it did go by like nobody's business. So hashtag Rant Pack. Recent article that I wrote, I think speaks a lot to what we're going to do over these next couple of days, and that is the Fa La La Folly. Have you sent your Thanksgiving cards out yet? Now, if you haven't, there's still time, because if you've got a phone and you have the link, is go and send a video message, because it's doable. If you haven't gotten yours from me yet, there's tomorrow. So hang in there, and there's Friday. You'll probably get a message from me, a video message on LinkedIn, thanking you for the opportunity to be with you. We very, very much appreciate that. And thanks to Amber for just doing a fabulous job with the Restream platform. Thanks to Josh Mabus, and certainly thanks to you all for becoming part of this growing audience of practicality and help with Jack Rants Live. This is Jack Hubbard. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everybody. And like today, make every day, every week, every year a great client week, month, year. We'll see you next week.